Some viewers may find this content disturbing. Viewer discretion is advised.
Ernie Davieau, the Squatch Whisperer. It's been a minute since you've been in the Fox Den. This is excellent, and now means it is time for you and I to team up for another episode of Midnight Lycanthropy here on StarFox Radio. Well, that was absolutely delicious. And now that I am ready to hunt the infamous Dogman, it is time for Ernie Davieau and myself to take a walk into the darkness.
Creatures of the night, yes. Welcome back to another episode of Midnight Lycanthropy here on StarFox Radio. We again have the Squatch Whisperer, Ernie, in the house, who's been super busy, like always. How you doing tonight, my friend?
Hey, I'm doing pretty good, Kenny. How about yourself tonight? You all right?
Yeah, just been grinding away and trying to get caught back on stuff. But yeah, I'm definitely optimistic and been learning some new things inside the editing aspects and also inside of the Dogman realm. So it's pretty good. What about you?
Yeah, well, I've been really busy because you know what I do for a living, and it's a holiday, so we just, I'll just throw it out there. For the people that don't know, I'm a butcher, and in 3 days we went through 5,000 pounds of just 80% hamburger. Crazy, but that's all people can afford right now is hamburger, for the most part. But other than that, it's been a little bit rainy here. We had a big windstorms here, power outages the past couple of days also. But other than that, I'm all right. I'm hanging in there, doing my thing. Not up till 5 o'clock in the morning like you are sometimes working on your projects like this.
Well, you're staying busy, and the thing is, by choice, it would normally I had been around 3:30 ish, but yeah, I just have to put the hours back in to get everything back up, and probably by the time people end up hearing, our audience hears this conversation, the majority of my stuff will be back up. So they will pretty much either have already understood the rebrand or missed it, which is good on both aspects. And yeah, so to everybody who wants to know where I get my breakfast from and my little Slurpees, it's definitely Ernie sends me over the little blood bags and he keeps me churning for the late nights.
Yeah,
Just
yummy.
kidding, everybody.
So, hey, Kenny, let me ask you a question. Have you ever heard the name Ed Smith?
I have not, my friend. Would you like to elaborate?
I absolutely will for everybody listening because it seems we have a little bit of a problem, like I'll call it the crypto world, but mainly Dogman and Bigfoot and the procedures that people should be using to share information or to do their research. And this gentleman's name just popped up recently through a very good friend of mine, an absolutely uh, outstanding researcher. And it turns out that this gentleman Ed Smith. This dates back to the late 1990s, like 1998 or so. Make a long story short, he got involved because of an encounter that he had when he was younger, and then one when he was a little bit older, to try to somehow capture Bigfoot on video or infrared or anything like that. So you got to imagine that the information that was out there for the infrared and night vision and all of that wasn't really that great. A lot of people didn't know about it, and it was extremely expensive. Well, through his research, and this is why I'm pushing this a little bit, is because I want people to understand that you need to share this stuff. And this information that I'm about to tell the people that are listening tonight has been around since 1999. That's a long time. And why isn't this information being passed around in the community, in the Bigfoot community? Okay. But to lighten up the story here a little bit, um, he has a large amount of evidence. He has over 55 videos, thermal videos of these, and I'm going to call them beings for everybody out there, that they're not just moving around on two legs. They're moving around on four. Now, Kenny, you're familiar with my encounter, so you know that I actually seen one running, a very close encounter, and then I seen another one running, and they can outrun a deer. And this gentleman, I think there's probably 6 people in his group. They videoed one going from bipedal to all fours, and this thing was super fast, and it did it in a split second from bipedal to all fours. They call it four wheeling, So that's information that we've heard of in eyewitness encounters, and a lot of people will wash that off. And it's interesting to note that when you wash off some information, you maybe a year later or 2 years later get another eyewitness that is actually saying the same thing. But because we washed it off the first guy, we no longer have that, and we just continually keep washing people off. Now, this Ed Smith, he had this in 1999, 2003, 2004. He was doing a lot of the videos, capturing them. I want to say that he was out in the Oklahoma area, but to me, it's very fascinating that people want to go out there and look around, but you have to understand what you're really looking for, and then what works and doesn't work. And this is just a prime example of using that information that was working, did work, and what doesn't work. What are your thoughts on that?
That's super interesting right there, and I appreciate you sharing that. I was actually never introduced to any of that information, so there's some more knowledge to be passed on. And I feel like it's just in general, there's so much information out there that's quality that kind of just gets wiped under the rug or pushed through the hands of history. I mean, as I've become an adult and had a chance to expand my own knowledge in the direction of what it is I would like to learn and not what's been necessarily directed towards my knowledge base, I actually have a choice in the matter of what I'm reading and watching and things. So I've learned a ton of interesting aspects that were never really referred to at all. I mean, back when I was in high school, I'm pretty sure I didn't hear anything about the cynocephaly, anything along the lines of that. I mean, they taught us Greek mythology, and I learned about Greece and ancient Rome, and I thought it was super cool. But I actually just recently, maybe in the past 4 or 5 years, got introduced to the cynocephaly. So it doesn't really surprise me. And also the way people do approach hiding and manifesting evidence and, hey, this is mine, and you can't use this. And it's really like we're back in middle school sometimes. So it again makes sense why there's certain knowledge not being spread properly, because either it's by choice or really by just lack of proper environment around. Being down in Ohio, you must have heard of Helltown, correct?
Absolutely, I have heard of Helltown. Been a while, since that subject's been brought up. But there's just so many interesting things down around here. What did you actually hear on Helltown?
Well, I was going to ask you because obviously I like to dive into the Dogman. I've heard of a ton of Dogman activity in there, but I've also heard of, I'm going to call it a story because, yeah, it's been verified there is a school bus down there, yet it has not been verified as to what happened to the students in there. There's a couple different variations of it. The one I'm going to speak about right now involves the Dogman potentially. And if people are interested in hearing more about the lore outside of the Dogman in that area, it's really easy to Google it, and some pretty gnarly and graphic stuff that does potentially come up with that area. But there is a school bus down there that supposedly was attacked and stopped by some sort of werewolf like creature, and no one ever saw the students or the bus driver again. Yet that's just, like I said, a story because no one's really able to verify outside of the actual bus being down in that area, and also some of the strange activity occurring. And you're down in Ohio, so I was interested in hearing your thoughts on that.
My thoughts aren't that deep on it. I've never heard of those things before. I do know that it was ironic that I think it was around 1974 or so, the federal shut the town down. The reason, I don't believe I've ever read the reason why they did it, but these people owned all these houses. They claimed that they wanted to turn it into a national park.
Mm-hmm.
But that's I don't believe anybody really goes there. All of these buildings were just completely abandoned. The clothes were left behind. Everything was left behind. So it's really be dangerous to be moving around any of the dwellings there now, because you could go straight through a floor or anything like that. It just doesn't make sense to me on that at all from Helltown.
Yeah, no, it's a really creepy place. And like I said to the audience, there is a ton of lore, because that's what I'm going to call it, lore, just surrounding the area. Yet there are things that are able to be verified, such as what Ernie just stated, and also what I stated about the school bus. But again, the incidents and the other stuff surrounding it, well, pretty much almost every cryptid reported has supposedly been seen in the area, and toxic waste. So yeah, there's a ton of stuff. Well, outside of Helltown, have you ever heard of the Beast of Tinker? It's like an old bridge area in Ohio. That's like a old railroad that connects to a bridge.
Actually, I have not heard of the Beast of Tinker.
Recently, there was somebody that I had seen, and he was out and about in Ohio walking across this area, and it's a really, really old bridge. And he was out in the night going down in there, but it's got a really mysterious kind of lore. And apparently, the land is owned by a really wealthy doctor, but his property is off towards the side of it, and where you're able to go is public property. But there's just all kinds of reports of Dogman in that area, like strange manifestations. And as I was unfortunately not able to come up with a direct name, and I'm trying to filter through what I've watched, but I've watched so much stuff in the past like 5 days that I don't really know if I'm going to be able to come up with more information than that for you.
I'm gonna have to dig that up for the next time we talk, because there's so many weird things that go on here in Ohio. It's like a lot of states do. Like I've never heard of Frogman in any other state except this one right here. And we just happen to move closer to my work, which is actually only a couple of miles, where the witnesses claim they've seen this Frogman in the Miami River. So that's just one example of a lot of the things that are out there. I know that I believe this state here has a lot more paranormal activity in it just because of the way the history of this state with the different mounds, the Indian mounds, Fort Ancient, the Serpent Mound. I mean, if we take a look at those, we go all the way up to the Great Lakes and all the way down to the mouth of the Mississippi. That alone is stunning to find out the real history of those things, and then look at the area, and we start to understand what was here hundreds and hundreds of years ago. So perhaps that has a lot to do with it. I don't know. I mean, we have a lot more paranormal activity and hauntings going on here on top of the cryptid sightings around here. So that'd be one that I'm going to have to check that one out to see if it's down near me. It seems like I have this magnet mounted on me or something that no matter where I move to, either I'm drawn to it or it's drawn to me, bringing me in, and they just pop up like that. You know, I just find it fascinating. But
No, that's super interesting for sure, and I appreciate you sharing all that. And actually, as you were able to tell the audience about all that interesting stuff, I was able to pull up what I was fully trying to refer to, and it's called, the Legend of Tinker's Hollow. Tinker's Hollow is in Ohio, and it's just a really interesting.
whereabouts?
Don't really know that aspect. The gentleman that happened to be walking around, his name was T-Mac. I don't know if he really wants his direct location in Ohio thrown out there, but yeah, so he was diving in down there. That's a really strange place. And then what about Germantown? Have you had a chance to really ever hear anything about that, or the Butter Street Beast, or any of the really infamous kind of DM attacks or encounters down in Ohio and those regions?
No, actually, I'm just starting to get into a lot of stuff down here. Nobody really talks. It seems like when we came into this area, there wasn't even any groups for like Bigfoot or Dogman or anything. It's just over the past like 2 years. It's almost like nobody wants to talk about those things. And there's a lot of really remote, um, like little hamlets, like tiny little towns that you can drive through between a lot of these. I'll call them small mountains, or they are small, or because I used to live up near the Canadian border, but these are a lot of windy roads that are really kind of remote. So I would think that there's a lot of secrets hiding down in these little areas. A lot of these people have lived in, families have lived in that same areas for 2, 3 generations, you know, own the same property, because there was a lot of farmland down along these rivers and streams and stuff. So that's something that I'm definitely going to be jumping into here ASAP. You know, as you know, I've had a few things on my plate, so I haven't looked in that direction just yet. But definitely I will be doing that.
Understandable, my friend. Things happen. We all got some things that occur sometimes. And yeah, you're right down in what I like to call Werewolf Square, meaning you got Wisconsin, you got Michigan, you got the land between the lakes, you got Ohio, you got parts of West Virginia and Pennsylvania. And you're just right in Werewolf Square. I've spoken about it before, and we can talk more about it in the future, but I'll kind of give you the quick little rundown. So in Germantown, there's been a bunch of different incidents. You have the part in the 80s where officials were driving down the streets, speaking over the microphone, telling everyone they needed to go back inside because wolves from the local animal reservoir had escaped. And everyone was like, well, wait a second, these are basically domesticated wolves that we see all the time when we visit, more or less. But okay, they're not really dangerous, I guess. But all right, we'll go inside. So everyone went inside, and all throughout the night, people reported seeing canine looking like creatures with glowing red eyes, putting their hands and faces all up on the windows, trying to get into people's houses, and strange vocalizations. And then years later, you had early in the morning, people witnessed what looked to be an enormous jet black werewolf looking creature get hit on the highway, and officials came in and closed down that section of the highway, but it was backed up because it was in an area where people were getting ready to go into work. So when people were driving by slowly, they got a good glimpse of it, and they could see that the officials were carrying a jet black werewolf looking creature off on a stretcher into unmarked ambulances. And then later on, they released a newspaper article with a black bear that they claimed had been hit, but it was in a completely different area. And fast forward now, you also have women that were getting their hair done in a salon full of women, and all of a sudden, this isn't like the afternoon, a large canine looking creature with glowing eyes was looking in the salon and then stood up on two legs and was putting its hands up on the window looking at them, and all of a sudden it turned around and ran off downtown Germantown, which is a small area, so it's not really like it's a massive town.
Where
Yeah.
is that located? Down near Cincinnati, or where is that?
Yes.
It is. It's down near me. Well, for crying out loud, that
And that's
makes
where Jody Cook's at too. Yeah, he's right near you too, brother.
wow. Yeah, that's interesting because, like I said, there's a lot of what I'll call little hollows. How about that around here that you just happenstance upon when you're driving around? And we've been thinking about going out and taking some drives and finding some places to hike around in. So that's really interesting, and that's I'd like to go back on what I was saying earlier on that Ed Smith there, that he, and this is what you and I have wondered before, is they actually have this bipedal thing running on all fours, getting up in a split second, to go from upright down to all fours. And I'm wondering sometimes if people in their fight or flight mode are not misidentifying the cryptid in itself. You know what I'm
Of course
saying?
they are.
Yeah, I would think so. That's what I was leaning on, because they see it on all fours, moving pretty smoothly, really fast, and then it stands up. So they're thinking dog when it's down lower because their brain's trying to put it into a
Huh?
peg. And that Germantown incident, that kind of speaks of that also, you know. But let's face it. I mean, they were saying wolves to begin with, and I don't know where any place that would have wolves running around all of a sudden that the authorities would be telling you to get inside. I mean, I know in the 1800s up where I grew up, not at that time though, but I grew up in that area. It was out there, yeah, it was out near Mount Greylock, and they had people that were being killed by these wolves. So all the farmers and everybody got together and they actually set that mountain on fire. And it pushed all them wolves right up near the top. They almost every single wolf that they possibly could up in that area. And that was a very historical account that was written down up around there, Mount Greylock and all those mountains up near Mount Washington, Jefferson, all of those, the presidential range. They had a lot of problems with that. So I'm just curious if that's what's going on there. Now down around here, yeah, this is like you can run into these little towns around here, these little hollows, I'll call them. They're like Sleepy Hollow. How about that? You get down in there and it's like you're going back, 150 years in time when you see the woods down there and some of the buildings. Really cool. So I would think that if anything's going to be surviving, it's going to be down there where it can hide really good.
No, for sure. And that all makes sense right there. And again, that's super interesting information. And I appreciate you sharing that. And with Germantown, it's just got a very strange feel to it in regards. I've never been there, but just so Jody was sending me images and the way the cornfield is and just how there's some paths through the cornfield and oh, it just looks like straight up nightmare fuel because you got the forest right by there, and just the way it gets so dark in there. And yeah, I could just imagine with people sitting out in their car, just hanging out, and all of a sudden something
Yeah,
checking out on the cornfield. That
yeah.
would, yeah,
Even on a bright sunny day, when you drive down through some of these places, they're just kind of like shadowy. I don't know any better way to explain that. While you're driving, you're hitting these shadows all the time that seem like they're moving as you're going, by the trees and everything. It's never really bright, bright, bright down there. There's always these really dark spots as you look out on the landscape.
makes sense. And again, that's, yeah, super creepy. And I'm going to be sarcastic for a second. I was watching a creature feature earlier because I don't like horror movies, but I get it from my mom. Rest in peace, mom. But she always would have me interested in werewolves and vampires, and like I was saying, dressing up like that for Halloween and all this stuff. So earlier, as I'm working on my own videos, just in the background, I have just churning on and watching a cheesy. It was right to pretty much the border of almost too cheese for me to watch, but I was not watching it, so it's just on in the background, and there were some humorous parts. But as you were just stating with the misidentification, one of the parts, this guy runs back to the cabin, and everyone was like, "Did you see it? What did it look like?" He's like, "I don't know." And they're like, "What do you mean you don't know?" He's like, "I don't know. I was freaking running for my life. I don't know what it was." And so now, just to state what you said with misidentification, that's why I said of course, because even though that's from a movie, that was one of the most realistic things I've seen in any movie. Because yes, exactly, I don't know, like, it was just a big huge thing chasing me. I didn't turn around and stop for a second to be like, oh wow, it's got nice blue eyes and 3-inch
Right,
fangs, like,
right, right. That's actually a historical account by a man called Remington in the book that was written is called Man Eaters of Camano, I believe, and it's all about tigers in, I think it was India. They had these man-eating tigers in India, and he had to go down there to eradicate them out of the area. His first night down there, or I should say afternoon before nightfall, is he noticed one of the native people running across the field, and the guy would stop and yell help, and then continue running and stop and yell help, continue running, stop, yell help, and he's seen this tiger come out of the edge of the jungle there or whatever, and it was chasing this guy. Well, things didn't bode well for him, but he actually stopped the next day to speak with one of the chiefs in the area, and he was informed that they have a problem um, running and talking. They have to stop to talk, and that's why he was caught by the tiger. But going back on Germantown, so that the listeners understand, we do know that these things are out there. If we don't know exactly where they are every single time because we don't know the range that they roam in or that they live in, but it certainly is scary uh, if you go to some of these little hamlets or these little towns along the ways in these hollows that have all kinds of shadows that are always moving around. You can't quite be sure whether it's really something is there that's watching you or if it's your imagination. But you should be wary of the fact that if you do have to run because you misjudged something, don't stop to yell help.
yes, exactly. No, that straight up nightmare fuel right there for sure. And yeah, the whole India and instances with what occurs with the tigers over there. And
Yeah,
you people want to know some, hey, fully 100%, there is no distinguishing, this is it, this happens, then watch and look up Indian tiger attacks and how they end up wearing masks on the back of their head in an attempt to hope that this tiger thinks they're looking at them, but obviously if this animal is swimming in the water while these fishermen are taking naps in their canoes and pulling them over and coming back and pulling more over. I heard some sort of horror story. I believe 3 or 4 men were in their makeshift canoe, and only one ended up making it back because, I don't know, he thinks it was the same tiger. It could have been different ones, but they just kept coming and swimming and getting them. So yeah, these are predators that we actually know and do document. So again, now picture it's something that we don't fully know about yet.
Yeah, and even those tigers, I remember reading about that a long time ago. It was on a little island. They had to go there to get a certain kind of wood or whatever that they were using. I mean, why go there? But in any case, it was a lot of people perished by going in there, and they wore the masks on the back of their head so that they would fool the tiger. But that didn't last a really long time. The tigers started figuring out that to watch for the eyes, even on your mask, you got eyes, and the eyes weren't moving. Yeah, that failed at it. And I'm thinking that here in the States here, where we have Dogman and we have, Bigfoot and all that stuff going on, I think they're a lot smarter than the tiger, So it's best to be careful. I think that'd be the advice that I give people. If you're going to go hiking, make it with a couple of people, and bring stuff with you to survive in the woods for a few days or whatever. But if you really want to go for a thrill, then try to find some of these little hollows, these little hamlets that are always kind of shadowy and cloudy, even on a nice day.
100% no, and that's extremely terrifying for sure, just to really think of all that, and just in general. And yeah, I mean, predators that we do know that are existing. Animals are smart, and I scratch my head all the time in regards of the lack of intellect in humans to think that animals don't figure out things and animals aren't smart, because that's just so foolish. And that's why we end up having instances where people vanish because they think, oh yeah, well, no, it's okay. Or instances like that. I mean, I understand it's livelihoodness, but if people in my village kept going missing from tiger attacks, I don't think I would keep going out in the forest to be collecting fruit and things that were causing that. And also, same thing with if a bunch of my friends were going missing when they were out diving down for shellfish because great whites were consuming them. I don't think I would be out going to do that. And again, if people that were going down to these rivers to swim and do their laundry were missing because of saltwater crocodiles, again, I wouldn't be doing that. And everyone seems to think we're the smart ones, yet those aren't very smart decisions. And animals know, and they pick up on things like that, and they understand. But hey, we'll learn one day, right?
Yeah, they pattern us for sure. I'd like to say too here is, one of the things is like I said earlier, we know that they're out there. We definitely know that they're out there. So what better place? Again, I'm going to have to push that. What better place if you were a werewolf would you actually hang out? Would you be way out there in one of these little hamlets, or if you were a Bigfoot, you go up to Amish country here in Ohio. There's a lot of them little places. There's been a lot of sightings around those places. Yes, they're further away than that. Also, they do roam pretty far, but it seems like those places there are the makings of a good nightmare for people to see something like that. For me, anyways.
Of course. And before we let you get going here, on a final note, that would be with anything. I mean, actually, I shouldn't say that, because there have been wolves over in India that established themselves in cities. And I heard a really sad fact that the majority of red foxes in the world are basically city-based in regards, and coyotes do it and such. So, I mean, actually, again, I've even heard about large tigers and large cats being spotted in cities as well because they know it's easy food sources. So, I don't know. I mean, for the most part, though, yeah, majority of them you would think would want to be in an area with cover. So I don't know if they necessarily fully post up in the city, but if they can like hide the shadows for a second and snag someone by the tree line, and then whether it's a large cat or a bear or a dogman, of course, yeah, that'd make a lot of sense.
Hopefully, people have a plan. You know, I've heard of them. I've heard people saying they've seen them down an alleyway next to a dumpster. You know, but again, we got to go back on that. Who would I be to be calling somebody else a hoaxer or something like that? I mean, I can tell pretty much people that are doing it, but you get people every now and then. It may sound like a hoax, but maybe it's not either. It's better to be safe than sorry.
100%. And again, though, I think potentially they might be coming up from like the sewers and stuff and using that just a tunnel system. So that's something else we'll have to potentially dive into soon as well. So I do appreciate you stopping by again, Ernie, and spending some time with me on Midnight Lycanthropy and spreading some information and awareness. And I look forward to talking to you again here soon, man.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Thank you for everyone who once again stopped by tonight for another episode of Midnight Lycanthropy here on StarFox Radio. If you do enjoy my content, please like, subscribe, and share it. Feed the algorithm, and I will see you on the next one.